What does gender equality mean to you?
Gender equality means to me that as coming from the same species, it's really about quality, really getting the same for the work that you put in or the lifestyle that you want to live. I truly believe that everybody has the right to pursue that, and there should be a fair and advantage to every single person equally. And sometimes we need to help people, come up to that equality. So equality to me is really helping the whole and making everyone have the same inalienable rights.
Being treated as humans rather than as male and female.
Just that everyone is equal, everyone is treated fairly, same, that there isn't one person put above another.
Awesome. Do you think there is a difference between men and women in today's society?
I most definitely think there's a difference between men and women, especially all around the world. I think that there's some small demographics that have, they've come up a lot. However, I think with the way that culturally we're looked at, women raise the children, and men kind of, work, which kind of creates inequality still to this day, just based off of cultural foundations.
Yes, I think there remains a big difference.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely is a thing. Either if you don't mean to or not, it's still people get treated differently because of who they are and what gender they are. Yeah.
Can you give some examples of gender inequality that you've experienced or been witness to?
Currently, just even in our society right now, with politics, high-end jobs, it's pretty relevant as far as the statistics go. So, I've seen equality just working, in the workplace through the last, 20 years of my life. There's definitely inequality that's still going around everywhere on a daily.
Sure. In my first major full-time job, I was fired for not sleeping with my boss. So this was in 1971, and I wasn't told that was the reason, but all my colleagues told me that was the reason, and they all said that they had slept with him. And let's see, another girl, that was in 1972, she had to go to Canada to have an abortion. That's gender inequality and lack of access to health care decided by the person and being forced to go to another country and for that. That same year, in 1970, I rafted the Grand Canyon. And I was so excited after coming back, I wanted to be a guide on the Grand Canyon. And so I wrote to every outfitter, including the only outfitter run by a woman, Georgie White. And they all wrote back and said, "Oh, we don't hire women." And again, this was the early 70s, and that was the mindset. So I could go on, but you get the gist.
That's true.
Yeah, I can say, just generically, because I don't want to go into details or specifics kind of thing, where I have been put on the spot for things that, I try really hard to do a show or anything like that, and I just kind of get put down or not taken seriously enough kind of thing, or I get called out for things that I see my male counterparts doing, and they don't get in trouble for it. So.
Are there things we should be teaching younger generations about gender equality? And what do you think is most important for children to learn when considering this topic?
Yeah, I think it's just like any type of movement. You really got to understand the history before you can actually understand the concept. And I think that, really we've kind of grown in a culture that kind of doesn't necessarily glorify the women as much in like giant things, discoveries. So I think it's really about creating the culture that has equality in it. We coming from a culture that it's very eugenic in a way. I think that it's really just a cultural shift.
For children to learn. Definitely to have respect for each other. I think that, definitely in school, teachers should be enforcing that. They're having respect for one another, regardless of gender.
When it comes to gender with kids especially, it's kind of cool because nowadays like kids get to explore like, oh yeah, I'm a boy and I like dolls and things like that, which is really cool. And I think like it's going in that direction where it's like more of just enjoy what you do versus like putting genders or anything like that on it kind of thing. And I think like those are like the first steps versus like trying to jump into like big pictures where it's like just kind of equalizing out and like not having two separate camps and just like being like, hey, just enjoy what you do.
What are your hopes for the next 5 years as far as gender equality is concerned?
I think in the next 5 years we should see more information available all throughout the world, not just in these first world countries where women are becoming, having more rights. But I also see a lot of countries outside of America and the first worlds that are still experiencing high, just inequality all around, and are, pretty much treating them however they want. So I think it's really about informing the world globally about the issues that have been basically infesting the world for a long time.
It's been a slowly evolving process. I think we've seen in the last 100 years a lot of great strides going back to, say, the 1920s. And I see larger strides today. Maybe that's driven politically and women more not being quite as discriminated against so blatantly as they used to be. And I think that it will continue on that path as people become more aware and more feeling not so afraid of speaking out.
I hope more people just start to respect each other and like they're more open to, understanding that, hey, gender is one thing, sexuality is another, and they learn the separations and learn to like listen to like when people are saying like, hey, even though I was born a guy, like I am a female, and they understand like where that's coming from, which I think, that's being brought into media more, which is like helping a lot, but I think there's a huge strides we still need to make.
And then lastly, do you think gender equality is a possibility?
I think total equality is kind of not a real thing. I think we're all kind of creating a construct, but I think the idea of it is possible and we can all strive towards it. I don't think that it's an attainable necessarily one time we're going to grab it and then we can keep it or it's going to go away. It's a thing that we're going to always have to try to continue to create equality. It's a moving variable piece. I think it's definitely possible to get closer to equality. I don't think that there's this utopian full equality thing just because of who we are and the type of species we are.
Absolutely.
I think so, eventually, but it's gonna take a while because it's gonna it has to happen slowly, and it is happening slowly, but we're probably not gonna see any major equality changes until maybe 100 years from now if we're still alive. Yeah.